Hello and welcome to the Team Yankee Stripes campaign game number 5. This is a fight between an American M1 tank company and a Russian T72 company. The mission is no retreat, but I'm modifying it in that all the units are on the table and the Russians would automatically be able to pass their cross check on the first turn crossing into the river. Those are really the couple of mods that I would do for the thing, for our game. Now on here for the Americans I have 2 M1 tank platoons. I have one on the right flank, one on the left flank. I also have a 5th vehicle that is on the extreme over here. You can see the 5th vehicle right here. Okay. We also have our company headquarters is just behind the church here. We also have 4 Cobras going with us. That's why I use the Flames of War plain dice, the blue ones. You don't see those anymore. But you also have Artie's Artie, SoCal Chaparrals. You also have Wally's ITVs as well. And then as we swoop over to here, we have our mechanized platoon that is deployed in the woods, as you can see. We also have minefields. We also have minefields that are deployed as well in different locations. The whole point isn't to stop the Russians, but to channel where they're going to be. You may notice, hey, why is this house on fire? The Russians thought there was a listening post there, so they blasted it with incendiary rounds. That's the story. And because this is a Team Yankee game, it's only appropriate that I give that quick moment there to the piece of the Berlin Wall. Okay? Yep. An actual piece of the Berlin Wall. So, moving on. So now we go to the Russian side here. And you may notice, hey, there's a few things here. Yep, we have got one company of T72s here behind the river line. We have a pair of Hinds. We also have Gophers all along there. You may see the command tank right here as well. You've seen that perhaps in an earlier game. Certain prototypes. Okay. As we move on, you can see that we have another company of T-72s that are behind the rivers in the woods on the hill, but you also have a BMP-1 on the hill, that's the Observer, and you also have a motorized rifle company there as well, ready to go with their BMP-2s. And in addition, that we cannot forget what we have over here, ladies and gentlemen, we also have our pardon me, there we go. I'm putting the white for the background to break it up. We also have the Carnation Instant Breakfast Platoon. Yes, I had to say it. All right, so objectives. Straightforward for the Russians. We have one objective right here, which when the time comes, we'll just reveal. Okay. And our second objective is right over here. Oh, look, it's Reynolds Command Post. Yes, exactly. So anyways, that is the basics for this upcoming game. And, well, I hope you guys enjoy it. So here we are at the end of Russian Turn 1 for the Stripes campaign game number 5 for Team Yankee. So, it's been a turn. The Hinds themselves haven't done anything. They stayed right where they are. Berserk 2, that's the tank company here, tried to cross. Half of them made it across the river into the woods. The other half couldn't go into the woods. Berserk 1, the commander, is following along. Berserk 1, the other tank company, has started to cross. Some of them made it into the woods, some of them have not. The mechanized, motorized guys most of them have successfully, well, they crossed into the river, but they haven't quite got into the woods yet, with the exception of that one guy. The Gophers fired and took out one of the Cobras. The T72s here, we've had a couple of them fire, and they blew up Nelson Platoon's platoon commander tank. Yeah, that's okay, because he switched over to this one. So, and last but not least, the Carnation Instant Breakfast Boys, thanks to the BMP-1 here, fired a salvo on these guys here, resulting in a pin, nothing else. But that's it for turn 1. Team Yankee fans, stay tuned, because we're going to get to the bottom half of turn 1. Okay, here we are at the end of American turn 1. So, first things first. Cobra helicopters flew behind to use their Gatling guns on the SAM units as payback for what happened. You may notice there were 2 Hinds here. The Hinds turned to face, but they got shot out thanks to SoCal Chaparrals. So, we're at this point right now, the SAM unit is pretty much messed up. There are no functioning tanks at the moment. Nelson's boys decided to move around and start firing on the T-72s over there, bailing out 1 and taking out 2. Meantime, the Fist unit decided to use fisticuffs, bring in these guys here with their laser-guided projectiles, and take care of the BMP-1 here in the woods. So far, this is just getting to be ugly. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of American Turn 1. All right, we're at the end of the top of Turn 2 for the Russians. And Berserks 2 and 3 have been trying to move forward, as you can tell. Some of them are still not quite making it. The Berserk 1 still is stuck there. As you can see here, these guys mounted their barrels to open up on Nelson's platoon, and oh well, hey, two more Abrams went down, and the third one that was left bailed. They left. They failed a morale check, so they're done. The Carnation Instant Breakfast decided to move toward the hill, and okay, this is the most ironic part. Our Gophers fired at the Cobras, and they missed. They missed at point-blank range. Can you imagine this? There's going to be payback for all of this. Okay, so what do we have going for us? Well, right now, it's not looking good here, because now this flank here, the American left flank, is now wide open, and the Soviets could launch a charge in there. What's going for the Americans is they have the choppers, and they also have the artillery. They also have Anchor's platoon, and they've got Wally there to help out. And the Fist is still around. I don't know for how long. All right. Well, that's it, Team Yankee fans. And now, a word from our sponsor. Hey kids, if you've been interested in a take-home version of Team Yankee, look no further. This is the rule book. In here you have pages and pages of information that you need. Pretty color pictures that show the diagrams on how to actually play the game, covering things like movement, shooting, close assault, morale, and on top of that, you have information on unit cards, as well as a background on Team Yankee. Team Yankee, get one today. Available at your fine local hobby stores. Okay, here we are at the bottom half of turn 2. And at this point you can see that the Americans, they have been moving up troops. Anchor's platoon has been moving up. The HQ guys have also moved from the back of the church all the way to here. The Fist has been bringing in something over here onto one of the Berserk companies, but failed. They took out one tank, I believe. Over here, the Cobras finally finished off the Gophers. So that's it for the American half of turn 2. End of the top half of turn 3. The Russians made their move. One of the Berserk tank companies moved forward from the woods out to here. These guys couldn't make their rolls. They fired. One tank fired on the Fist and obliterated it. The other tank company, the other Berserk unit, came forward. That guy back there couldn't make his roll. Fired on here, on Anchor's platoon, taking out 2 M1s. So now Anchor is down to just these 2 M1s. I think they're going to be taking cover for a while. It's now a fragile unit. One more casualty and that could be the end of it. The mech platoon, the motorized infantry, have been moving forward. This guy boldly failed. These guys have been moving forward, firing on these guys here, but missing. Carnation Instant Breakfast Boys decide to move to the hilltop and just fire over open sights onto here. They failed. They failed a hit. So right now we are at the end of the Russian half of turn 3, and we will have the American half of turn 3. Stay tuned, Team Yankee fans. This isn't over yet. Welcome back to the bottom half of turn 3. This has gotten interesting because now we're getting a bunch of action here in the woods because the Mike's mech platoon decided to open fire with dragons and the LATWs, and they destroyed 2 BMP-1s. These guys escaped, but they're pinned down. We had 1 stand of infantry, but they are not... They didn't make it. That's just the way things go, right? So that's where the action has been happening on this sector. You may notice over there the tank commander, the formation commander, his tank got blown up. Well, there's a reason for that. It is the wonderful, 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 wonderful Cobras that did the job. Which, that was the good news. The bad news is that, oh look, he's in 6 inches. Hopped over, no hay problema. That's no problem. That must have driven the Americans insane on that. Meanwhile, we had our HQ guys split up, so our guy here went, fired, bailed one of the guys. The other guy here stayed, fired, blew up a Russian tank. Cody's platoon, Anchor's platoon here fired and bailed one guy out. Yeah, this is not quite over yet. It just isn't. And I'm sorry, but Yeah, he didn't blow him up. He was a commander. He decided to give the Tron's bikes, our laser-guided munitions, the specialty here. That special thing that only laser-guided munitions can do. All right, folks, this isn't over. You see, the problem that the Americans have is we have got Berserk 2 and Berserk 3 that they're still fairly intact. They're not out of the game yet, and they are the core units of the formation. The formation leader's not dead. He just acquired a new ride. But on the other hand, we've got Anchor's platoon. They're down to 1/2. It's not good. One more hit, one more knocked out tank, and they could start going away. The HQ tanks have split up in the hopes of wreaking some more havoc. But that would mean that perhaps, maybe, the Cobra helicopters will help out the next turn and send some tows over their way. All right, that's it for the bottom part of turn 3, and turn 4 is coming up. Okay, we're finished with the top half of turn 4. The Russians have moved forward. You can see here Berserk 3 has moved on up into the woods, ultimately to assault these guys. They did fire their guns at him. They missed, except for this guy. The number of tanks fired at him, he's still alive, believe it or not. The artillery tried to hit these guys, failed miserably. These guys tried to fire, failed miserably. These guys have unpinned. These guys have unpinned, and they have dismounted. So they're a little bit more careful. In other news, for Berserk 2, one out of the 2 bailed, remounted, and they have moved forward. And they tried to fire on the company commander's tank there in the far right. Missed. And over here, missed again when they tried to fire on this guy. So, without further delay, this is the end for Russian turn 4. Let's see what the Americans can do. Alright guys, so here we are at the end of turn 4, and you're seeing more wrecks than you can possibly imagine. Okay, let's start from this side of the table here. Our company commander ended up firing, only to bail this guy out. The two ice, well, that's our company commander here. He fired, and he bailed out one tank, the middle one there. Anchor's platoon also fired, took out another tank. Cobras fired their tows and took out 2 more tanks here. So that's where the action has been. Actually, this guy here, I'm sorry, he used Tron's laser-guided missiles. I call them Tron's bikes, which is appropriate for that time period, and bailed out this guy, and that was... No, I'm sorry, over here, and bailed out one guy. That was it. So this has just been a long, confusing fight. But you know what? It's been a good fight. Okay, so let's go around here. Let's see what we've got happening on the other side of the field, because, oh boy. All right. The VODs. They got out, they moved, they're over here. This is probably more gamey, and it wouldn't be done, I would think, in real life, but desperate measures. Desperate situations call for desperate measures. They need to be held back. They opened fire with their Gatling guns, 4 hits. Ultimately, the infantry were saved. This BMP-2 was saved. This BM-2 went up in flames for their troubles. These guys cannot, I repeat, they cannot hurt the tanks here. They just can't. So they're going to wait until the tanks are upon them. Not to mention that they're still pinned. That doesn't make things any easier. We're still holding the objectives here, but things are getting a little bit closer. But, well, we're going to see at the top of Russian Turn 5. And now we take a break for station identification. Welcome back. So we are finishing the top half of turn 5 with the Russians. Berserk 2 has been moving forward, tried to fire at this command tank here, failed miserably. Everybody failed miserably on this. The artillery decided to fire on here, failed miserably. Just absolute misery. Missing completely. But the main action, ladies and gentlemen, was on the other side of the board. This is where things really took off. Because you may remember the last turn, Valentine's VADs were coming up and gunning the motorized infantry here. There was a lot of damage that was done. Well, turned out that these guys here had some anti-tank weapons available. They set this VADS on fire, and the other VAD decided to fail a morale check and run for it. But that's not the biggie. The biggie is what took place here on the tree line. Because Berserk 3 decided to make a run and go and close assault these guys. And they tried with 3 tanks. And it turned out that while these guys have LAWs that can't penetrate the side armor given the BDD armor of the T72s, Dragon missiles can. And you know, good thing I took that extra Dragon. I am just saying, because these two got popped. This one missed entirely. It was this guy here, pinned, but they still fired into here, blew up the last. The close assault failed. The T-72 had to pull back. So this is it, folks. This is the end of Russian turn 5. It is not looking too great for the Russians, because on this side here, there's 4 tanks out of 9. On the other side, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 tanks, one of those being the formation commander. So, and here we have our headquarters section over here, and then we have Anchor's platoon, of which there's only 2 left. So it's already kind of fragile. So, this is it. The excitement is building up. I think it's going to be ending soon. We'll see. Stay tuned. Here we are at the end of American Turn 5. It's been a slugfest. This guy was spotting for these boys here, firing their laser projected munitions, and bailed all 3 out. This guy blew up this tank. The Cobras fired their tow missiles and bailed 2 of the 3 tanks, whereas Anchor's platoon moved up, started firing, and bailed out another one. Dragon missiles, there's a limit to what they can possibly do to the front of a T-72. It's not so likely. Alright. The game is not over because the Russians have passed their morale checks. Yep. Down below 2 for each of the 2 tank units, and the commander is bailed out. Wow. What's going to happen on Russian turn 6? Stay tuned, Team Yankee fans. Welcome back. We've just finished off the Russian half of turn 6. And as you can see here, we had our Berserk 2 tank company. They failed to climb back in. The formation commander, however, came back, moved over here to shoot here, failed. These artillery units, the Carnation Instant Breakfast, tried to lob an artillery barrage on these guys here and failed. This tank tried to fire into the infantry here, failed. Notice how these two are still bailed out. The infantry has moved up. Motorized infantry has moved up. Shot, failed. The BMP-2 here with its autocannon fired on here, taking out a Dragon missile team. Wow. This is almost the end, folks. I don't know. Maybe next turn that will be it. All right. Stay tuned. And here we are. At the end of turn 6, the Americans had their turn. The results, well, fairly conclusive. This M1 came from over here, came around, and fired. This guy guided the laser-guided missiles. Didn't do anything. This guy takes the credit for blowing everything up. Anchor's platoon moved out from over here out to here to take shots at the formation commander's T72. Guess what? They blew it up. Our Cobras, in their last act, sent the toes on those tanks there, blowing one up, bailing out another. Bottom line is, they had to take a morale test, and they lost, and they left. In the process, though, Soviets did take out another stand of U.S. mech infantry. So, it's been a long, hard fight. The U.S. wins it. Minor victory, 4-3. But I want you guys to look and see what it took to get a 4-3 selection. What a massacre this was. What a fight. What a way to go. Now, it's 4-3 because the U.S. lost Nelson's M1 tank platoon and Valentine's VAD's platoon. That was it. What did the Russians lose? They lost Berserk 1, Berserk 2, Berserk 3, the formation commander, the two T72 tank platoons. They lost the observation BMP-1. They lost the Hinds, and they lost the Gophers. I'm thinking, yeah, it should be more than a 4-3 victory. It should be. But folks, it was a hard-fought fight, and it was teetering there for a while. It was. And all I can say is, good fight, good night.